The biggest impact that I've seen to my budget from tracking my spending has just been like realizing all of those little purchases adding up. As young adults, most of us enter the working world without ever learning how to be good with our money. Personal finance is one of those things that you don't think you need to learn about until you have a surplus of money. But truthfully, when you're young with not a lot of disposable income is the best time to learn strong money habits. My name is Erin Confortini. I'm 23 years old from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I am a TikToker in the Gen Z personal finance space. I really want to change the narrative between like money being something you should learn about when you have an abundance of money. I think that everyone sort of has that mindset that they'll automatically be better with their money when they have a lot of it. But really the time to learn about money is when you don't have a lot of money and you don't have a lot of discretionary income, because the money mistakes that you'll make at that point will be relative to like your age and your income. In this lesson, we'll go over 3 habits that will help you to get ahead financially in your 20s. How to create an effective budget, avoiding impulse purchases, and automating your savings. Learning how to successfully budget is truly going to make the biggest impact on your financial foundation, which is why we're discussing it first. You need to understand where your money is going every single month in comparison to how much money you're bringing in, to find out if you're living within your means. Winging it and just hoping that it all works out at the end of the month can lead to fees from your bank and credit card debt that will accrue interest. And all of these things can really hinder your ability to get ahead financially. But budgeting doesn't have to be as scary or tedious as you think it might be. Let's discuss how to set up a successful budget that works for your lifestyle. There are 3 main steps when it comes to budgeting, and you have to do all 3 in order for it to be effective. The first is to estimate your income and your expenses for the month. You do this prior to the start of the month, and this is where you decide how much money you should spend on your different categories. You can use whatever categories work for you and how you spend your money, such as groceries, gas, utilities, discretionary spending, just as a few examples. By doing this, you now know what you're aiming to spend throughout the month on different things, and you can use this to help guide your purchasing decisions. The next step is to track your expenses throughout the month. And this is arguably the most important step. You need to understand exactly what you're spending your money on and whether you're spending the amounts that you budgeted for in that category. For example, if you budgeted to spend $200 on groceries, are you staying within that $200? It can seem tedious to have to track every dollar you spend, but I do this on a weekly basis, checking my credit card apps and Venmo accounts to see what I spent throughout the week. You don't realize the little purchases that like add up. You get halfway through the month and you're like, oh my gosh, I actually did spend like $140 on takeout in the last week, or like something like that, you know what I mean? The third step is to compare your budgeted amounts to what you actually spent throughout the month. This step happens at the end of the month, and it's super important for reflection. If you realize that you went way over your budget in one category, you might realize that you need to cut back the next month. Or you might realize that your budget just doesn't accurately reflect your lifestyle and you need to change it to be more realistic. The next habit that will really set you up for financial success in your 20s is avoiding impulse purchases. Outside of the purchases that you make that are pretty necessary for you to live, like bills, utilities, groceries, gas, you might realize that a good chunk of what you're spending your money on comes from discretionary spending. This could be things like going out to eat, shopping, running to Target. It could be really difficult to change your habits around these purchases, but one thing that really works for me is avoiding purchases that happen on an impulse. What do I mean by this? If you're leaving work and you decide you're in the mood to run to Target, and all of a sudden you spent $150 on clothes, new makeup, a new book, these are all impulse purchases, and you probably bought them because you were in the mood to spend money. Impulse purchases are ones that you make without much thought put into them. If you see a cute shirt online and you order the shirt right away, that was an impulse purchase. How do we avoid these? We need to create new habits around spending our money, and here are 2 great ones to implement. First, try creating rules for yourself around when you can do certain things. For example, if you realize you're spending too much money on takeout because you leave work every day and you make an impulse decision to pick it up, create a rule for yourself for when you're able to grab that takeout. Your rule could be that every Sunday afternoon you get your favorite takeout. If you're spending too much money at Starbucks, create a rule for yourself that maybe every Saturday morning you can get Starbucks. This habit builds self-discipline and helps to cut down on your spending. The second habit to adopt is to wait a certain period of time before buying anything discretionary. If you're online shopping and you find a cute pair of shoes for, let's say, $100, wait 1 week before allowing yourself to buy those shoes. 1 week later, you might realize that you didn't really need those shoes after all. The bigger the purchase, the more time that you should wait to make sure you really want the item. The third habit to adopt to become financially literate in your 20s is to automate your savings. This habit is the easiest to adopt and stick to because, well, it's automated. So many people have trouble sticking to their savings plans because once the money is in their account, they get the feeling that they want to spend it. Many employers now let you automate a percentage of your direct deposit to go straight into your savings account so that every month you know you're hitting your savings goals. So how do you figure out how much to automate? This is where tracking your spending becomes super helpful. If you've been tracking your spending for a few months, you have a general idea of how much you earn versus how much you spend on a monthly basis. This should tell you how much money you have left over to save, and that's the amount that you'd want to set up for automated savings. Getting control of our finances in our 20s is no easy feat. Even when we're thinking we're making adult money, it can be really hard to manage to make sure that we have enough left over to save at the end of the month. And I know these 3 habits should help you be better with your money.